Hello everyone, my name is Ivo and welcome to Cooking with the Koyas. Today folks, I'd like to share with you my recipe for making an amazing dark German rye bread. Yes folks, and we're going to make this with using 100% rye flour. A lot of the rye breads are made with a mixture of flour, like whole wheat flour, for example, and rye, or whole wheat rye and white flour, but we're going to use 100% rye flour. Yes, the loaf will be denser and heavier, but consider the benefits. Rye flour, high in fiber folks, high in nutrients. It has a slow digestive rate, so if you know anyone who's diabetic, or if you're diabetic, it's fantastic for diabetics for that reason. Also folks, it is low in calories, so if you're considering or worried about weight or on weight loss, then the rye bread fits the ticket right there. And then of course there's that amazing rye flavor that we all enjoy, and that folks is the icing on the cake. So let's get started right now. So folks, I have here 400 grams of rye flour, which is about 14.1 ounces. So we start with that. And to that folks, I'm going to add about 2 teaspoons of this Diastatic malt powder, which is about 8 grams or 0.28 ounces. This folks is food for our yeast and also adds color as well to our bread. Okay, very important. And I'll tell you what, this Diastatic malt powder folks, this bag will last you a long time, more than a year, because you only use so little. Okay, now that that's in, we're going to add our salt. So basically I have here just regular table salt, 1.5 teaspoons of regular table salt, which is about 10 grams or 0.35 ounces. Next, now the thing with rye flour folks is typically most rye flours, I'm going to say most, are very low in protein, between 9 and 10% protein. And that's one of the disadvantages of the rye flour. But folks, we're going to bring that rye flour protein level up to close to 15%. We're going to get it nice and strong. And by doing that, we're going to add this vital wheat gluten. If you haven't seen my episode from last week where I talked about vital wheat gluten, I'll put a description and a link for you so that you could check it out. And I share with you the recipe and the formula for knowing how much vital wheat gluten to add to your flour at any point in time. So be sure to check that out. And in today's case, to get this up to about 15%, I'm going to add, folks, 34 grams, which is about 4 tablespoons of the vital wheat gluten. So now we've just made this flour a strong bread flour just by doing that. Okay, now as far as yeast goes, active dry yeast, folks, or instant yeast. So active dry yeast or instant yeast, folks. And I have here, I used 1/8 of a teaspoon. All you need is very little. And I'll tell you why we're only using 1/8, because we are also going to add some sourdough starter. So I have my sourdough starter here. We are going to add 200 grams of sourdough starter, which is about just over 7 ounces, 7.5 ounces, maybe 7.05 ounces. It's easier, folks, to measure in grams. It really is. So 200 grams of sourdough starter. 177, a little bit more. There we go. 200 grams of our sourdough starter. Now, if you were using sourdough discard, then you would go with 1/4 teaspoon of yeast. So we only went with 1/8 teaspoon of yeast because we're using an active sourdough starter. Okay, so if you're using discard, just bump your yeast up to 1/4 teaspoon. All right. And get all that beautiful starter out. I love the spatulas. Okay. Now, folks, the next secret ingredient, beer. You want to use a dark beer. And this, folks, is, I'm making German rye. It's a dark German beer. Perfect for today's recipe. So I always use dark German beer when I make this recipe. And we are going to use, folks, 250 milliliters, which is the same as 250 grams. And that is 8.8 ounces. We've got an active beer going here, folks. And this is room temperature, okay? We want that at room temp. So we're at 93 grams, 99, 100. So let's pour in 100. Okay, let's add a little more. We want to get it up to that 250, if I can pour it a little more gently. So we got 100 in there already. And now we're going to add another 150. Okay, it's 153, so I'm going to hold back just a bit. There's our 150 plus 100. So we have 250 grams or milliliters of the dark wheat beer, which in Germany they call Dunkel. So look for the Dunkel, dark Dunkel. That's what you want. Dunkel means dark. And now we're going to mix all those ingredients together. Our beer, our sourdough starter, the additives we put in, and of course our rye flour. So let's get these all mixed. I like to start using a spatula, and then of course we're going to switch over and use our hands to continue to mix and to knead this dough. Okay, so just mix it all around. Start it to get to form kind of a rough dough. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, folks, I think we're ready to start mixing by hand a little more. But like I say, I like to use a spatula at least to get things started. Okay, let's get all that flour out. Alrighty, there we go. Okay, so now with our hands, we want it to come together and form a nice dough. So it's going to start to stick, as you can see, because we are using somewhat high hydration with that beer. Okay, and mix it all together. You can see it's starting to come together a little sticky. That's okay. And what you're going to want to do now, folks, is we've added that vital wheat gluten. So we've added gluten, we've added protein. This bread is close to 15% protein now. So we want to work those glutens a bit. So just continue to knead this for about at least 3 minutes, 3 to 5. Okay, so I'm going to do this for at least 3 more minutes. So it's been about 4 minutes, roughly. And you can see it's sticking a bit to my hand. I'm using the palm of my hand and bringing the dough over and just rolling it into itself. Okay, that's all it takes. And if I didn't mention it, folks, the reason we want the higher protein is that high protein level is going to allow for a nice vertical rise, trap the gases, and allow our rye to rise much better than otherwise. And of course, it'll make for a nice chew and a good crust. All right, so once we've finished 3 to 5 minutes, you can see it's already somewhat dense and heavy. Not too bad on the sticking factor. And for those of you who want to know, this is 70% hydration. When you take into account the liquid we put in from the sourdough starter, along with the beer that we added, you're up to about 70% hydration. If that's too sticky for you, you can drop it down to 65%. The recipe will still come out very, very good. Okay, so now we're going to let this rest for 30 minutes. Cover it and 30-minute rest. It's been about a half hour, which has given me just enough time to do some cleanup, which is nice. And our dough has been resting very nicely. And again, it's not like your typical dough. I could already see it's very firm and dense. But at this point, what we're going to want to do is just knead it again for another 3 to 5 minutes. We're going to get that gluten network going. And also, folks, I mentioned I use the Vital Wheat gluten. That's all natural. All that is a concentrated wheat protein. And again, like I said, if you haven't seen last week's video, I'll put a link in the description for you. Check it out. But it's an all-natural ingredient made from wheat. And as far as the Diastatic malt powder is concerned, it also sounds like a synthetic or a chemical. It's not. It's 100% natural. All it is, folks, is barley, ground barley. But again, the advantage of using that is it is a superfood for the yeast, along with adding some color. So some key ingredients that we've added here, folks: the Vital Wheat gluten, the malt powder, and of course the secret ingredient, our dark German beer. Okay, so I'm going to do this for another 3 minutes, and we'll come right back at you. I just love working dough, getting my hands in dough. I love it. Okay, about 3 minutes have passed, and you can see all I'm doing is using more of the palm of my hand and just pushing down and rolling forward a bit. Just push down and roll, push and roll, using the palm, not necessarily your fingers. And the dough is still sticky, but as you can see, not as sticky as the last time we were working this dough. Alrighty. I've got a beautiful container here, folks. We're going to put it in our container. Put the lid on it. It's going to sit here now overnight. I like to do this the night before because this is going to sit for about 11 hours. My house is sitting at around 68 degrees, so it's going to sit for 11 hours. If your house is warmer, in the 70s or upper 70s, instead of 11 hours, you could go, say, 10 hours. Or if your house is cooler, in the mid 60s or lower 60s, you can go actually 12 hours. So from anywhere from 10 to 12 hours, depending on your temperature, but as a general rule, 11 hours. And we want the dough to basically double in size. So we're going to cover it up. It's going to have a rest. I'm going to go to bed soon. I'm going to have a rest, and we'll come back at you in about 11 hours. Here we are about 11 and a half hours later, and take a look at our beautiful dough, folks. You remember yesterday, it was just basically a tight ball, hard tight ball of rye dough. Now, folks, it has, look at on the inside here, it has grown nicely. It has expanded and grown. Okay, let's gently take this out right now. So, with a spatula, I'm going to just carefully remove our dough. Slowly get it out. It doesn't handle like your typical white flour dough, folks. It's, like I say, it's much denser, firmer, and stiffer. We lost a little piece there. Okay. There we go. We got it. Basically, we got it out. Okay. Now, with this dough, we're going to put it in this banneton. So what I like to do is take some, I like to use whole wheat flour, folks, as opposed to white flour. You could also use rye, but the reason I like to use whole wheat flour and line my banneton with whole wheat flour is because it's also, whole wheat flour is a little coarser, right? And it just helps prevent stickiness much, much better than, let's say, a finer white flour or even a rye flour for that matter. Okay, and I'm getting a little low on my whole wheat here, I see. Okay, trip to the grocery store coming up. All right, and then we want to put some right there. This is just so it doesn't stick. That's all. That's the main purpose here. Okay, now with our dough, you typically would do a 4-fold with a white dough flour. We're going to do somewhat of a 4-fold because we do have some gluten here, but not a lot. So we're just going to kind of, the only reason we have that extra gluten is because we added it. So we're just going to kind of fold it over. All we want to do at this point, folks, really is shape it. But we are going to give it a 4-fold and then give it a shape, a nice round shape, or whatever shape you want. I'm just going to tuck it into a nice round shape. There we go. There. Isn't that nice? So we're back to almost where we were yesterday with that size of a firm dough ball. All right. And now we're just going to place that in our banneton. I got this whole wheat flour. I'm going to just sprinkle a little on top to prevent sticking at all to our beautiful cloth. And now, folks, we're going to cover it up. And we're going to leave it covered for about 2 hours. So the proof time is going to be 2 hours, which means at 1.5 hours, we're going to fire up and preheat our oven, and we're going to put our Dutch oven in there to get it preheated as well. So for right now, it's got to rest for 2 hours. At the 1.5 hour mark, we fire up our oven. Here we are an hour and a half later, and that means it's time to preheat our oven. And in our oven, I'm going to put this Dutch oven with the lid. Now, if you don't have a Dutch oven, it's no problem. Any oven container that you have with a lid will do just fine. So I'm going to use my small oven today. Set it at 400 degrees. So we're going to preheat the oven at 400 degrees for the next 30 minutes. And then we'll put our bread in. But one thing I would like to mention, in a larger oven, in my regular gas oven, it would take a little bit longer to cook this bread than in a smaller electric oven that I'm using today. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there, but keep that in mind. Larger ovens, you need a little more cook time. Smaller ovens, cooks quicker. Okay, so 30 minutes, we'll come right back at you. Our preheat time is now up. So let's retrieve our Dutch oven. It'll be very hot, so of course use oven mitts. Okay, there we go, nice and warm. Let's put our dough in. And let's reveal our bread dough. Look at that, it's risen nicely, shaped nicely. Okay, so again, very hot. So we're gonna remove the lid. And then I'm going to just I'm going to very gently tilt this dough out of the banneton and place it right into our hot Dutch oven. Again, be very careful. And now with a bread lame, I'm going to score the top of this dough. And the scoring, folks, does a lot of things. It allows the bread to expand, and it also is going to control where the bread cracks. So we'll just do a simple X's and O's pattern on the top. There you go. You want to score about a 1/2 inch deep, 1/4 inch, 1/2 inch. Okay, any pattern that you like. All right, and now the oven mitts go back on, and this goes right back in the oven. So let me put this in the oven. With our dough now in the oven, we're going to bake it at 400 degrees for 30 minutes with the lid on. So 30 minutes lid on, then we're going to take the lid off. Now the second part of the baking with the lid off is where the time variation comes in. In this smaller electric oven, it may only take 20 minutes with the lid off. We'll see. You're going to monitor it and take it out when it's cooked. Now with the larger oven, it might take 30 minutes with the lid off as well. So again, with your oven, what I recommend is just monitor it and see where that sweet spot is. So, but for sure, regardless of the oven, you want 30 minutes with the lid on, and then with the lid off, 20 to 30 minutes depending. All right, let's be patient, and we'll remove that lid in about 30 minutes. Our 30 minutes are up, so let's take the lid off and take a quick peek. There's our bread so far. Looking good, looking good. Okay, lid off, and you know what? We'll check it in about 15 minutes and see how it's doing. It's been 15 minutes. Let's take a quick peek. Oh, it's looking really, really good, folks. Okay, I don't know if you get a chance to see it there, but it's got some nice color to it, but I want it to be darker. So we're gonna let it go the full 20 minutes at least, and we'll take a look at another 5. So another 5 minutes have passed. Let's take a look. And you know what? It's looking really good. We're gonna stop it right there. So that is the full 20 minutes with the lid off. Out of the oven it comes. And there we go. How's that for a nice loaf of rye bread right there, folks? Isn't that nice? Again, it's smaller and denser. Let's take a look at the bottom. The bottom is cooked absolutely perfect right there. You can see. Just nice. And that's how I like to cook them, folks. I like my rye bread to be, the tops just to be on the cusp of, let's say, turning black. So you could see here, just on the top, we're just starting to get nice and dark. That's how I like it. So again, in that smaller oven, it took 20 minutes with the lid off. In a larger oven, could take longer. So let's let this cool down just a bit now. So to get our beautiful rye bread to cool, I'm gonna put it on a rack. I want it to stay on some sort of a cooling rack so it doesn't sweat and the bottom stays nice and crisp that way. So we're gonna be patient now and just let this sit and cool for, a couple hours. This is where the patient factor comes in. And Judy, one of our subscribers, if you're tuning in, you're gonna love today's taste test because that's what's coming next. Our bread has been cooling for a couple of hours. Take a look at that beautiful bread right there, folks. Isn't that nice? I know it's not huge, but it's a nice small loaf of rye bread. And you need that cooling down time, folks. It's very important. In fact, 2 hours would be the absolute minimum. It has to finish cooking, cool down, and develop some flavors. So, in fact, the longer you let it wait, the better. A lot of people let it actually sit overnight till the next day. But you know me, folks, we're gonna cut in right now and do the taste test. I can't wait. Just a beautiful color to this loaf of bread, folks. Okay, here we go. Let's cut right in. Nice crust, as I can see, or hear and feel. Right down to the bottom. Cut right through. And we are through. Okay, and we are through. Look at this, folks. There we go. Isn't that nice? Look at that beautiful, beautiful bread. Now, if you notice, it's just slightly sticky. Not real sticky, but slightly sticky. If you see the knife, it's relatively clean. So one of the problems with rye bread, folks, is that it's very sticky or very gluey on the inside. So the way we cook this in the recipe that we used makes it not so sticky. In fact, if we would have left this in the oven a little longer, it cooked a little more, it would have got a bit drier on the inside as well. But this, folks, is not sticky at all. Very, very, very gentle sticky. Perfect, actually. So, you know what we're going to do now, folks? The taste test. Yes, one of the common problems, folks, with rye bread is this stickiness or gumminess. And we have avoided most of that right here with our recipe. In fact, like I said, look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Not really sticky. Very, very nice. If we would have, like I say, cooked it a little longer, it would have helped. And also we could use a little bit less, if we wanted to use a little bit less beer, that would help as well. But look at this beautiful, beautiful color of this bread. It's nice and dark. We got a nice crust on it, top and bottom, gorgeous. And now, for our subscriber, Judy, yes, she's been after me to do a taste test with bread and butter. So here you are, Judy. I hope you're tuning in because this taste test is for you. There we go. Look at that. Always my favorite part, folks, the taste test. But before we do that, I just want you to see this beautiful, beautiful rye bread color one more time. Nice and dark, small little air pockets, not gummy Absolutely beautiful, beautiful bread. Okay, now for my taste test, the rye bread with butter. Here we go. I should have even toasted this beforehand. Tell you what, flavorful. This has that nice chew. Good flavor already. And it's only been sitting for 2 hours. So again, let your bread sit a little bit longer. It'll develop more flavors and continue to develop very, very nicely. And I couldn't wait. So 2 hours, like I say, absolute minimum. But again, because our bread is not gooey inside or gummy inside, it doesn't stick to your teeth. It's got a good flavor. It's absolutely perfect. Dark German rye bread, made right at home, folks. You've got to give it a try. It is absolutely delicious. I can't wait to toast this and make myself a nice sandwich. But for now, this is perfectly fine. Not sticky at all. Beautiful. Wherever you're tuning in from, folks, I hope you give this recipe a try. If you like rye bread, you're going to love this rye bread. Absolutely fantastic. Thanks for tuning in, and until next time, buon appetito. Really, really good rye bread.